Alfonso Cahero, A Journey into Finance History. Chapter 30, First Opium War and the Opening of China's Economy, 1839–1842. Once upon a time in the early 19th century, China stood as a beacon of wealth and civilization, governed by the mighty Qing dynasty. Yet, beneath the veneer of prosperity, a dark shadow loomed over the land: the opium trade. In the bustling ports of Canton, now Guangzhou, British merchants found a lucrative opportunity in the sale of opium. This addictive substance, harvested in British-controlled India, was exchanged for China's prized tea, silks, and porcelain. The demand for opium grew exponentially, fueling the coffers of British traders while plunging countless Chinese into addiction and despair. For Emperor Dao Guang, seated upon the dragon throne, the opium crisis was a grave concern. Despite his efforts to ban the drug, it continued to flood into the country, sapping the vitality of his people and draining China of its wealth. The emperor faced a dilemma: how to stop the flow of opium and restore order to his kingdom. Emperor Dao Guang's court was fraught with tension as the opium crisis deepened. The emperor knew that the British merchants were flouting his laws and poisoning his people, yet he felt powerless to stop them. Every attempt to crack down on the opium trade seemed to only exacerbate the problem. In 1839, Emperor Dao Guang decided to take drastic action. He appointed Commissioner Lin Zexu, a man known for his incorruptibility and iron will, to rid China of the opium menace once and for all. Lin was given sweeping powers and a mandate to enforce the emperor's edicts with ruthless efficiency. Commissioner Lin Zexu arrived in Canton like a storm, determined to root out the opium trade by any means necessary. He launched a relentless campaign, raiding warehouses, seizing opium stockpiles, and arresting those involved in the illicit trade. The British merchants, accustomed to operating with impunity, were caught off guard by Lin's ferocity. In one dramatic gesture, Lin ordered the destruction of over 20,000 chests of British opium, dumping them into the sea. The destruction of such a valuable commodity sent shockwaves through the British community in Canton and sparked outrage in London. The destruction of their opium stocks brought the simmering tensions between China and Britain to a boiling point. The British government, under pressure from its merchants, demanded compensation from the Qing authorities for the lost opium. When their demands were ignored, they decided to take matters into their own hands. In 1840, British warships sailed up the Pearl River, intent on forcing the Qing government to comply with their demands. The clash between the British Royal Navy and the outdated Chinese war junks marked the beginning of the First Opium War. The British Royal Navy, armed with superior weapons and technology, unleashed their firepower upon the Chinese fleet. Despite their courage and determination, the Chinese were no match for the modern warships of the British. The battle ended in a humiliating defeat for China, as British forces seized control of key ports along the coast. The defeat at the hands of the British was a wake-up call for the Qing government. It exposed the weaknesses of China's military and underscored the urgent need for modernization and reform. With victory in hand, the British forced the Qing government to sign the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. This unequal treaty imposed harsh terms on China, including the cession of Hong Kong to the British, the opening of 5 treaty ports for foreign trade, and the payment of indemnities to cover the costs of the war. The Treaty of Nanking marked a turning point in China's history. It shattered the illusion of Chinese invincibility and ushered in an era of foreign domination and humiliation. The Opium War had far-reaching consequences for China. The once proud empire found itself humbled by foreign powers and forced to open its doors to the outside world. The Treaty of Nanking set the stage for further encroachments on China's sovereignty and laid the groundwork for a century of foreign domination and exploitation. The defeat in the Opium War also exposed deep-seated problems within Chinese society. Corruption, inefficiency, and complacency had weakened the Qing dynasty, leaving it vulnerable to external threats. The need for reform became painfully apparent, but the path forward was fraught with challenges and obstacles. The influx of foreign goods and ideas brought about by the Treaty of Nanking had a profound impact on Chinese society. Western technology, such as steamships and railways, began to make its mark, transforming the way people lived and worked. But alongside these changes came social upheaval and unrest. Traditional customs and values clashed with modern ways, creating tensions that simmered beneath the surface. The gap between rich and poor widened as new opportunities for wealth and advancement emerged for some, while others were left behind. Amidst the turmoil of the post-war era, a charismatic leader emerged to challenge the authority of the Qing dynasty. Hong Xiuquan, a failed civil service examinee who claimed to be the younger brother of Jesus Christ, rallied millions of followers to his cause. In 1851, Hong and his followers launched the Taiping Rebellion, a massive uprising aimed at overthrowing the Qing dynasty and establishing a heavenly kingdom on earth. For more than a decade, the Taiping forces waged a bloody war against the Qing government, laying waste to vast swathes of the country and causing untold suffering. As the Taiping Rebellion raged on, Western powers saw an opportunity to further exploit China's weakness. Britain, France, Russia, and other foreign powers demanded and received concessions from the Qing government, including control over key ports and the right to extraterritoriality. These concessions only deepened the sense of humiliation and resentment felt by the Chinese people. They saw their country carved up and plundered by foreign powers, with little regard for China's sovereignty or dignity. In the face of foreign aggression and internal strife, a new generation of Chinese leaders emerged who recognized the need for fundamental reform. The self-strengthening movement, spearheaded by figures such as Li Hongzhang and Zheng Guofan, sought to modernize China's military, industry, and infrastructure while preserving traditional values. Under the self-strengthening movement, China embarked on a program of modernization and industrialization. Factories were built, railways were laid, and arsenals were established to equip the Chinese army with modern weapons. Despite these efforts at reform, China remained deeply divided and vulnerable to external threats. In 1899, a secret society known as the Boxers rose up in rebellion against foreign influence and Chinese Christians. The Boxers, fueled by a potent mix of nationalism and religious fervor, believed themselves invulnerable to bullets and foreign magic. They besieged foreign embassies in Beijing and launched attacks on Westerners and Chinese Christians throughout the country. The Boxer Rebellion sent shockwaves through the international community, prompting a swift and decisive response from Western powers. In 1900, an 8-nation alliance including Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, and the United States dispatched troops to crush the Boxer uprising and protect their interests in China. The alliance forces, armed with modern weapons and superior firepower, quickly overwhelmed the poorly equipped Boxer armies. Beijing was occupied, and the Qing government was forced to sign the humiliating Boxer Protocol, which imposed heavy indemnities on China and further weakened the Qing dynasty. The Boxer Rebellion and its aftermath dealt a devastating blow to the Qing dynasty, exposing its weakness and incompetence for all to see. The emperor's authority was undermined, and calls for reform grew louder and more insistent. In 1911, a group of revolutionaries led by Sun Yat-sen overthrew the Qing dynasty and established the Republic of China. The ancient imperial system that had ruled China for over 2,000 years was finally brought to an end. The Opium War and its aftermath left an indelible mark on China's history and psyche. It shattered the illusion of Chinese invincibility and exposed the country's vulnerability to foreign aggression. The century of humiliation that followed, marked by foreign domination and internal strife, continues to shape China's relationship with the rest of the world to this day. But amidst the pain and suffering, the Opium War also sparked a spirit of resilience and determination among the Chinese people. It fueled calls for reform and modernization, leading to the birth of a new China that would eventually rise to reclaim its rightful place on the world stage.